Welcome, as Apple joins the bandwagon with their own post-apocalyptic drama. Will this be yet another streaming flop, or something to finally rival The Last of Us? Talking of games, you'd be excused in thinking this is some kind of TV adaptation of Fallout, but it's not. That's later on in the year when Amazon get to it. Get out of here. Silo is set in a post-apocalyptic world where humanity cling on to life in a 144 layer vault. Silo. The series explores the secrets of the silo, as all its history had previously been destroyed. However, on a discovery of a relic, could the doors to the outside finally be set open? If you're an avid fan of sci-fi dramas, enjoyed shows such as Snowpiercer, The Last of Us, Westworld, then this is a show you must watch. Rest assured though, unlike other shows, this is backed by a 9-book series including prequels to the current episode, so you're in good hands. As mentioned previously, this does feel like a bit of a Fallout clone, and we have to wait till the end of year to get Amazon's take on Fallout, but until then, this does fill the void ever so nicely. Off one episode alone, I've given this a quotidian rating of 8 out of 10. Any sci-fi fan will enjoy this straight out of the gate. Although the story seems like it's been done before, I had to pause episode 2 just to come and write this to give this a review, so I'm hooked straight away. Right, spoilers ahead as we dig a little more into episode 1. Straight away as the episode starts, we're flung right into the deep end as Sheriff Hulton tells his deputy he wants to go outside.
I want to go out.
Following that strange request, the show then takes us back 3 years, showing us all the events that have led to this decision. As Allison and the sheriff find out they're actually able to have a baby. Unfortunately for them, their attempts all fail, and as Allison grows desperate, she's confronted by an old weird lady called Gloria who tells them maybe they're not allowed to have a baby.
Do you really think you're the kind of person they want having children?
Allison here, played by a familiar face, Rashida Jones, obviously best known from The Office. I think straight away from the very start of the series, it's nice to see a list and a cast that doesn't involve 1,000 characters from Game of Thrones, although Ian Glenn, who played Jorah Mormont in Game of Thrones, does make an appearance later on in the series. Adding to the weirdness, she's then sent on a job, and this takes place during the celebration day after a war 140 years ago against some rebels kicked off and ultimately led to the destruction of all the old history and data that the vault held. All through the show we get this weird Empiric-like state where clearly no one is allowed to question the rules of the silo, and we see on the celebration day all the flags are out and we can see something's not quite right there. They're hiding something, they're holding back, they're forcing people to conform to what they agree to. Now, this has been done before, like I've mentioned in Fallout, where it's almost for the greater good, and I can almost already see that that's starting to play out here. Strangely though, which normally is done on these kind of things, we get some kind of slums or people who aren't as well off and they're left in the bowels of the silo or the vault or the train carts if you're on the Snowpiercer. I've not seen that yet with this episode, so maybe they're not going to go that cliche. On arriving at George's shop, they discover an old relic, an old hard drive, and she's able to restore some of the information on there, finding footage of the outside world, but instead of dark and gloomy, things are bright with blue skies. In this scene, we get to see some of that classic style of old school tech, but with new imagery. So on the machine, obviously they've all got these green screens, but actually when they dig into the hard drive and they discover some of the footage, it's all clear, like showing you that actually their technology is not as old as it looks. It's just they're being limited. Another one of these plays into the classic, are the guys at the top doing things for the greater good, limiting their ability of tech, limiting what they can do on a computer, whereas actually these computers are much more advanced than we realise they are. After finding out all this, Allison is prompted then to check if her birth control has actually been removed, taking a knife and removing it herself. She then heads to the cafeteria to proclaim the good news that actually outside the vault is fine, before finally saying those dreaded words. Before leaving, she tells her husband that if she goes outside and everything is as she says, clear and green and blue, that she will actually wipe the camera, else if not, she will just wave and walk off. After Allison leaves the silo, she does in fact clean the camera, proving that her theory was right and it is green and blue outside, but just moments later she walks off and dies. This whole section was amazing, with the breakdown of Allison over not being able to conceive a child. Obviously quite a touching subject, but I think the actors played it really well, even down to the scene where the sheriff is closing the door and he's looking at her and he's crying and he's telling her he loves her and he asks Do you have any final words? And her final words to him are, I love you. That whole scene felt powerful, and you can understand now why the sheriff has taken the decision he's taken. But it's going to be interesting to find out how he gets there. As the show draws to an end, we are then placed 2 years back in the past, where Sheriff Halston is actually given a case about a murder, and that murder appears to be George. In the dying moments of the episode, we are actually finally introduced to our other main character, Juliet Nichols. Juliet Nichols is actually played by Rebecca Ferguson, who's also co-producing the show, so hopefully we get to see her character delved more into in episode 2. So, why am I hooked on this show already? So, as I've mentioned, it feels a very familiar premise, and we've seen these shows done before, we've seen the games Fallout constantly, but I think the thing that's attracting to me at the moment is we're finally getting a sci-fi drama rather than a sci-fi action. We've seen stuff like Citadel and all those things, and The Last of Us, and they're very action orientated. This show feels very drama orientated, almost on a path to discover why they are locked in the silo. And as mentioned before, it's backed by books. Now, we've had issues with Game of Thrones. Season 8 was appalling. This has all the books written, and 3 of the books that are currently written are based on prequels to the current episodes. So even then, the whole series has been fleshed out. So hopefully, we won't get those issues where scriptwriters just go off path because they don't know what actually is going to happen next. And then finally, onto my theories for this. I think, as Alison mentions, outside is green and the skies are blue and there's grass and there's leaves. But I think what's actually happening is the backpack that's attached to them as they're sent out to do the cleaning before they die. That's what's killing them. That's pumping poison into their suit that ultimately kills them. And this is where I feel we're going. They don't want people to leave the silo, and I have no idea why that's the case, but I think they're killing them on the way out. And my other theory is this isn't the only silo. There's going to be more silos out there, and we're going to end up visiting one of the other silos before the season ends. Just because there's one built, why would there not be more built? It seems like these were built to properly handle human race, so there's got to be more silos out there, just like how Fallout does it, ironically. All in all, guys, I think this is a must-watch for anyone who likes a sci-fi drama. Like I've said, if you've watched stuff like Snowpiercer and The Last of Us, these are the kind of things you'll like. Obviously, it's a bit slow-paced, there's not as much action as other things, but the key here is we're trying to delve deeper into a story and find out why the silos are created, rather than just taking them over and destroying things. And I'm really into that, and I can't wait for episode 2. Finally, guys, if this wasn't quite your cup of tea and you prefer a more action-based sci-fi, go and check out our review of Citadel up here, directed by the Russo brothers. So the classic Marvel take. Go and check it out. And we also have an afterthoughts where we break down the episode as well. And as always, we'll catch you next week with something new.